First story, by John Smith. It was a chilly autumn evening when my friends and I decided to embark on a camping adventure in the heart of the Blackwood Forest, nestled deep within the state of Oregon. Rumors had it that this forest was haunted, but we were skeptics, attributing eerie tales to the wild imaginations of locals. Little did we know that the horrors that awaited us that night would test our skepticism to its limits. Our group consisted of 4 friends: Mark, Sarah, Mike, and myself. We had all grown up together and considered ourselves to be quite adventurous. Equipped with our camping gear and a fire pit, we ventured into the forest, ready for a night of camaraderie and stargazing. The forest had a foreboding aura about it, with ancient trees towering overhead and dense underbrush that seemed to close in around us as soon as we entered. It was as if the forest itself wanted to keep us captive. The sky had grown dark quickly, and the rustling leaves and chirping crickets were the only sounds that accompanied us. As we set up our campsite, Mark suddenly pointed out an odd occurrence. A dim, flickering light could be seen in the distance. It seemed like someone was moving through the forest with a lantern or flashlight. We dismissed it as another camper exploring the area, but as the night progressed, the strange light drew closer to our camp. Despite our initial nonchalance, an air of unease settled over us. The light appeared erratic, sometimes dimming to near darkness before re-emerging. No voices or footsteps accompanied it. Mark, being the bravest of us, decided to investigate. He grabbed a flashlight and ventured toward the flickering light, disappearing into the woods. Minutes passed, and we anxiously awaited his return. But Mark never came back. Worried, Sarah called out for him, her voice trembling with fear. There was no response, just an eerie silence. We decided to follow the path Mark had taken, our flashlights cutting through the inky darkness. The forest had grown eerily quiet, with no chirping crickets or rustling leaves. It was as if nature itself held its breath in anticipation. After what felt like an eternity, we stumbled upon Mark's flashlight, abandoned on the forest floor. His absence sent a chill down our spines, but we couldn't give in to panic. We continued searching, our fear intensifying with each step. That's when we heard it, a soft, distant whisper that seemed to come from all directions. It was impossible to make out any words, just an unsettling murmur that sent shivers down our spines. Our flashlights flickered as if possessed by some unseen force. As we pressed forward, we encountered a clearing in the forest. In the center, an eerie spectacle awaited us. A circle of flickering lanterns surrounded an old, gnarled tree. Each lantern bore a strange symbol that we couldn't decipher. At the base of the tree lay Mark, motionless and staring blankly into the darkness. Sarah rushed to his side, shaking him in an attempt to wake him from his trance. But it was as if he had been hypnotized. The forest seemed to close in around us, the whispering growing louder and more intense. Fear surged through our veins as we realized that we were trapped in this nightmarish circle. With great effort, we managed to break Mark free from his trance, and without wasting a second, we fled the clearing, leaving the lanterns and the haunted forest behind. The whispering voices pursued us for a while, gradually fading as we put distance between ourselves and the cursed place. We stumbled back to civilization, exhausted and traumatized by the horrors we had witnessed. To this day, none of us can explain what happened in the Blackwood Forest that night, and we dare not return to seek answers. The fear that gripped us was all too real, and the memories of that night continue to haunt our dreams. Second story, by Emily Johnson. It was the summer of 2022 when my friends and I decided to venture into the wilderness of West Virginia for a camping trip. We were a group of 5, all university students seeking adventure before the upcoming semester began. The Appalachian wilderness promised isolation, serenity, and a break from the daily grind. Our journey led us deep into the Monongahela National Forest, miles away from civilization. We had hiked for hours and were far from any marked trails when we stumbled upon a small clearing, a perfect spot to set up camp. The forest around us was dense, the trees blocking out most of the sunlight. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we gathered around a campfire, the warm glow providing comfort in the encroaching darkness. But our peace was short-lived. From the depths of the forest, we heard the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate. We turned off our flashlights and listened in silence. Emerging from the darkness were 2 men, clad in tattered clothes and sporting unkempt beards. Their presence was ominous, and they approached our camp without invitation or greeting. Our hearts raced, and tension filled the air as we exchanged uneasy glances. The taller of the 2 men, his eyes bloodshot and wild, spoke first. He claimed that we were trespassing on their land and demanded we leave immediately. We apologized, explaining that we had no knowledge of private property boundaries. But the men's demeanor grew increasingly hostile, and they refused to let us go. We were trapped in the wilderness with no cell phone signal, miles away from help. Fear began to set in as we realized that these men were not interested in a peaceful resolution. Their threats became more sinister, and they hinted at violence if we did not comply with their demands. The situation escalated when one of the men produced a rusty, sawed-off shotgun from beneath his tattered coat. He waved it menacingly, making it clear that they intended to keep us hostage. Panic surged through our group, and we desperately searched for a way to escape. Under the cover of darkness, we devised a plan. While one of us engaged the men in conversation to distract them, the others would gather their belongings and slip away quietly. It was a risky move, but we had no other choice. As the hours passed, the distraction tactic began to take its toll on the member of our group who was engaging with the menacing strangers. His voice quivered, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead as he struggled to maintain the ruse. We knew that we had to act quickly. With our hearts pounding, we made our move. We grabbed our backpacks and slipped into the shadows, using the cover of the trees to shield our escape. The forest seemed to close in around us, and every rustling leaf or snapping twig sent shivers down our spines. We walked through the night, guided only by the faint moonlight and the stars above. Eventually, we stumbled upon a ranger station and reported the encounter. Law enforcement officers were dispatched to investigate, but when they reached the clearing, the menacing strangers were gone without a trace. To this day, the memory of that terrifying night in the West Virginia wilderness haunts us. We will never know the true intentions of those menacing men, but we are grateful that we escaped their clutches. Our camping trip turned into a nightmarish ordeal, a reminder that danger can lurk in the most remote corners of the world. Third story, by Mia Rodriguez. In the summer of 2022, my friends and I embarked on a backpacking journey to the remote forests of Transylvania, Romania. We were a group of 6 adventure seekers, drawn to the allure of Europe's ancient woodlands and the legends that surrounded them. Little did we know that our trip would take us far beyond the realms of the ordinary. Our expedition began in the picturesque town of Sibiu, nestled within the Carpathian Mountains. Armed with backpacks, tents, and an insatiable curiosity, we set out on a trail that promised to lead us deep into the heart of the Romanian wilderness. The first few days of our journey were uneventful, filled with awe-inspiring landscapes and nights spent under the starry Transylvanian sky. It was on the fourth day that strange occurrences began to unravel our sense of reality. As we ventured further into the forest, we noticed subtle changes in our surroundings. Trees that we had passed earlier appeared in different locations, and the path we had been following seemed to twist and turn in ways that defied our maps. It was as if the forest itself was shifting, rearranging its components like an intricate puzzle. Nighttime brought even more unsettling experiences. Our campfires burned with a strange, greenish flame that cast eerie shadows on the trees. Unfamiliar sounds echoed through the forest, whispers that seemed to emanate from the very trees themselves. We dismissed it as fatigue and the effects of isolation, but our unease continued to grow. On the seventh night of our journey, things took a darker turn. A dense fog descended upon our campsite, obscuring our vision and sending chills down our spines. In the midst of the fog, we heard the distant sound of chanting, a melodic and haunting chorus that seemed to beckon us deeper into the forest. Unable to resist the call, we ventured further into the fog, our flashlights cutting through the thick mist. The chanting grew louder, and it was then that we stumbled upon a clearing, illuminated by an otherworldly light. In the center of the clearing stood a circle of hooded figures, their faces hidden in shadow. Fear gripped us as we realized we had stumbled upon a ritual of some kind. The figures chanted in a language we couldn't understand, and strange symbols glowed in the air around them. It was a scene straight out of a nightmare, and we watched in terror, unable to move. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light engulfed the clearing, and we felt a surge of energy wash over us. In an instant, the forest seemed to come alive, its trees twisting and contorting as if they had a life of their own. We were overwhelmed by a sense of dread and powerlessness. In that moment, we made a collective decision to flee. We ran blindly through the forest, the fog and the chanting fading behind us. It felt as though the forest itself was pushing us away, as if it had tired of its game. Hours later, we stumbled out of the woods, disoriented and traumatized. We reported our bizarre encounter to the local authorities, but they dismissed it as a tall tale born from exhaustion and fear. To this day, we are haunted by the memory of that night in the Transylvanian forest, where reality and legend collided, and the boundaries of our understanding were pushed to the brink. Thank you for watching whole video. Check this video you see on the screen, it's one of my favorite. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and smash that like, to support my free and daily content for you. If you enjoyed this video, drop a comment and tell me what story got you chills.